I'm Ken Coomes with another episode of The Right Stuff, part of TV Toastmasters. Welcome to the show. We're going to be interviewing Camille Virginia. Not only does she have a great book for all of us that came out last year, another book coming up, and her own business, she's a great person to talk to and listen to. And that's what we're going to do and find out more about her books, and her business. So please help me welcome Camille Virginia. Hi, Camille.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you could make time for the show. Before we get into talking about your book, The Offline Dating Method, that came out last year, people want to know more about you, I'm sure. Let's talk a little more about your background and what led from you as a child to you as an author and an entrepreneur.
Well, I grew up fairly shy and actually had social anxiety. So the fact that I wrote a dating book on social skills still kind of blows my mind. But I, through over a decade or so, just took steps to overcome that by doing things like going to parties by myself and forcing myself to talk to strangers and ask questions and things like that. And eventually found my groove with connecting with people. I moved to Chicago in 2010 and I didn't know anybody. I moved there for a job. I was in corporate America and I had to use those same skills to make new friends because I didn't even know anyone out there. And in the process, I started getting asked out by men in random places like the grocery store, the drugstore, the dry cleaners, places like that. And this was around the time when online dating was getting more mainstream. The dating apps had come out. And so my friends were swiping while I was getting a date walking down the street with a random person that I just was talking to. So long story short, being in the corporate America world, if you want to learn something, you create a PowerPoint. So my friends asked me to create a PowerPoint on how to meet men. And that turned into several workshops, which I taught over 100 times. That turned into a business course, our online course that was, I have clients all over the world. That turned into a business. And then that eventually turned into 3.5 books.
Wow. If a socially anxious introvert can teach a workshop over 100 times, as well as all the other things you've done, surely there's hope for everyone. I hope people take a positive message from that. You sound like a positive person, and I know your books are positive and meant to help people. So you go from where you were to this workshop idea, to these steps, to this framework, to these, how do you date people and how do you meet people in the real world instead of online, instead of swiping left or right and finding they digitally lied or whatever you find out. The writing process and the publishing process are something that our viewers are often interested in as they are authors or working on being authors. So how did you become published and what was your process?
So over the years, I had a lot of material and it was kind of piecemeal. And then about 2 years ago, I developed a 9-step framework called the Offline Dating Method. So everything was organized. And around the time that I moved from Chicago back to Portland, there was a book proposal contest that my friend told me about. And the top prize was a full publishing package.
Oh.
And so, I'd been thinking about a book. I had a lot of material. It was now finally organized after all these years. And with this prize, I could basically get a $30,000 book deal. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it. So I entered the contest. I did win the first prize, the full publishing package. And then, thank you. And then I launched my group coaching program, which followed my 9-step method, got those coachings transcribed, and took about 5 months to clean them up and put them into a book narrative, or what I thought was a book narrative, but ended up being 3 book narratives.
The first of which was the Offline Dating Method, How to Attract a Great Guy in the Real World.
That's right. Yep.
And I know that some people might have caught your interview with last September, I think it was, when you were on the KGW.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if they saw that or not. Of course, there was a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of information there. And you've already alluded to some of this, being asked for a date in a grocery store or the dog park or whenever and wherever, where your friends were swiping and not having success, apparently. So good for you, and for you for sharing and helping other people do the same thing. Now, when it comes to your proposal and your package and how you got published, you talked about your organization and your framework and then getting things transcribed
Mm-hmm.
as far as your writing process. So I think it's maybe time to talk a little bit more about the book itself. And what do you think, well, before I go to the book itself, for you, what was the greatest pleasure of getting the book out there?
Great question. I think the best part was getting published in media sources that I had read growing up. So The Atlantic did a huge
Oh,
article on
nice.
my book. I was quoted in USA Today. I actually have a funny story. I have bbc.com as my homepage. So when I open my browser, I just see the news on bbc.com. So, and that's been that way for 15 years. Well, about 6 months ago, not even, maybe 4 months ago, I opened my browser and I saw on the BBC homepage, can you date without the apps? These millennials think so. And I click through and I'm reading and I'm thinking, I should be in this article. My book is perfect. This is exactly what I say. And I keep reading, Ken, and I am in that article.
Oh, great.
And with a link to my book. So
All
that
right.
was super cool. That was a great moment.
All right. It's interesting because before we go into the book still, I'd like to ask you what your thoughts on this. The pandemic, COVID-19, forced us, a lot of people, to be remote and socially distant. As we come out of that and reach normalcy of some sort again, I'm wondering, will we need something like your book? Because we will need to retrain ourselves about establishing real life connections. What do you think?
110%. I wrote this book before, clearly it came out last year, so before the pandemic. We were already in a loneliness crisis. We are now in even more of a loneliness crisis, not just for singles who are especially at risk because they don't have companionship, but the majority of the world feels lonely more than is normal for the human species. And a lot of it is due to technology, not all of it, but a lot of it. And so I think that this whole pandemic has only heightened and made more acute our loneliness pain. And so that's why I teased that I will be having a book coming out this fall. I am not entirely sure. I haven't even told my publisher this yet, but it either will be a book I've been working on called The Offline Connection Method, which is already on Amazon actually, or it will be a reissue of The Offline Dating Method to be gender neutral to help all singles. And I still, I have readers of my book, The Offline Dating Method, How to Attract a Great Guy in the Real World, who are married women, who are married men, who are gay men. It really, 90% of the book, if not more, is just how to connect human to human. At the end, I tell you how to turn that into a date, but it's just meaningful connection skills, because you're right, we have lost it. And we've only lost it more in the past couple of months with the pandemic.
My brother-in-law and I have had this debate going on for years about the pluses and the minuses of technology. With Facebook and with social media and with video chat, Zoom, things like that, we can reach out to people, find people and connect with that we didn't even know before, have conversations long distance. It's not the same as talking in person. And the more of that we do, the greater the risk that we'll lose that ability to feel comfortable and real when we're face to face and talking to someone live. And 20 years ago, he was decrying the increase of electronic communication. And I was arguing the other way because I was a techie. I was working at Intel at the time. And I was saying, hey, it's great. Look at all it provides. And I think the truth is balanced in both, because he's in New Hampshire, my sister in here in New Hampshire, my nephew, and I get to talk to them without going to New Hampshire, which is great, especially now. But I like to see them in person more than I like to talk to them remotely. We are a social animal after all. Exactly. So now, I've talked about it more than once about getting into the book a little bit. You've already talked a little bit about it and how it's about not just people looking for a date. But what else would you like to tell us about the offline dating method before you go to your business and talk about that, or before we talk about your next book, whatever it happens to be?
Well, it's a book of a whole bunch of stories in an entertaining voice. Like it's me. I've had readers who've reached out to me who said, Camille, I've never even met you, but I feel like I know you after reading your emails, after reading your book. So that's the craft, that when you are able to find your voice and translate it into writing, that is such a gift. You can feel like you're having a personal connection with each reader. It was very cathartic for me to take a bunch of stories from all my dates and relationships that at the time were very painful. Like these were very, very painful lessons, Ken. This was not like unicorns and rainbows. All these stories ended well. They did not. I mean, I'm friends with most of my exes and I'm very grateful for the experiences now, but at the time they were hard lessons to learn. And I often had to learn them many times before I finally got the lesson. So being able to translate all that into a book that is, as Shelf Awareness called it, unapologetically upbeat, which is true. It's about a very serious topic though of human connection and loneliness. Then that's, if you're looking for something of not just inspirational fluff, but actual tips and how-tos and options and anecdotes and stories in an upbeat tone, then this book is for you.
Great. And as we've already talked about, especially you have talked about, it's not just for those people looking for a date. That's only at the very end of the book. Most of the book is about people to people regardless.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what about people that feel like they're in a good, solid relationship? Will they get advice there that will help them maintain that, or maybe solidify it even more?
Definitely. Yeah, I go pretty deep. And again, not in a heavy way, but in a way that shows how to ask great questions. I say, don't ask anyone a question that you yourself don't care about, because you're already poisoning the conversation. I think there's so many strange social nuances of, polite chit chat, talking about the weather. No one enjoys talking about the weather for more than 20 seconds. And yet we feel like we have to because of some unwritten rule. So I teach how to get off the weather topic. You can use that as an icebreaker. But once you know that the other person's open to talking, get off the weather and ask them, hey, what was the best part of your day today? Or I love your shirt. What does that symbol mean? Like, it's permission to be authentically curious. And then also how to be a good listener, because people are not good listeners these days. And part of that is tech, because we get distracted easily. Part of that is just not using our skills as listeners that our ancestors, when we were sitting there by the fire, there was nothing else to do, became good listeners. But to be able to listen to someone's story is such a gift for you, who I tell you how to basically create a experience from every conversation. Like you're watching a movie or a TV show or reading a good book in every conversation. And then for the other person who probably doesn't have people who are actually listening to them 100% and giving their full attention, that is the longest section of the 200 plus small sections in my book, is how to be a good listener. So absolutely, anyone of any relationship status, gender, sexual orientation will get value out of this book.
Interesting you brought that up, because we're on this segment, The Right Stuff, part of TV Toastmasters. Toastmasters launched to help people learn how to speak more effectively. But it turns out one of their key lessons is also how to listen more effectively. And when I first joined, that's the thing my wife loved best about it, is I learned to listen more and to be a better listener. And we all want to be heard, and often we're not. So good point. And I love your phrase, poisoning the conversation. So we need to be careful, or maybe not so careful that we're walking on eggshells, but engage in that meaningful conversation instead of fluff, as you say. And sure, why talk about the weather for even 20 seconds? We all know what the weather's doing if we're in the same location. Maybe if we're distant, we might talk about it, but that's online, not offline, right?
Yeah. And also it's a great way to see if the other person's open to engaging. It's a very safe topic, but anything beyond 5 seconds, no one cares about the weather.
I understand perfectly. Well, let's move now. We've talked about a little bit about the offline dating method. and who it's for and how it can help a lot of people, regardless of whether they're dating or not. Your next book that may or may not be The Offline Connection, which had a tagline of 4 minutes to a more meaningful life in the real world. If it's that book, what can you tell us about it? If it's not, what can you tell us about what it might be?
Yeah. So the offline connection method is basically taking the principles of the offline dating method and expanding it to all types of connections. So originally I was just going to change the narrative to be gender neutral, make it not about dating, swap out stories from dating to friendships and other relationships. I've had, job interviews come from meeting someone on a plane and, things like that, all the different types of connection. Because no matter the outcome that you're looking for or what happens, the connection skills don't change from person to person. So that was originally what it was going to be. I have been getting more and more ideas to change it into to further differentiate it from the offline dating method using the same principles, which is going to take longer to do. And we want to time it so that when this pandemic starts winding down, probably hopefully late summer, early fall, we start seeing steps to socialize in some capacity. I want to have a book ready to support humans. And whether that is reissuing the offline dating method to be gender neutral and help with singles, which is my market that I've been working with for 6 years, or the offline connection method, which is broader than TBD. But one of those books will be out September 1st.
Okay. You even had a date, September 1st. Wow, I'm impressed.
Thanks.
That comes from being organized, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you'll do a PowerPoint or a book or something else about how to be more organized, because a lot of people need those skills as well, I think.
I could teach a whole class on that.
A lot of us could benefit from that, I'm sure. So what about your business? Now, you have a business, as I understand it, called Master Offline Dating. Is that going to change as well as you're talking about a broader perspective than just dating?
Great question. That was part of the reason of possibly not going with the offline connection method just yet, is that I don't have a business built out on the back end to then further support people with that. I do in the dating world. So I can see myself eventually going into connection as a whole, because that really is my passion. Dating really is just the vehicle to get these connection skills that I teach into the hands of a population who I can relate to, being single for so long. And then also, I think just really need help with all the dating apps and stuff out there that isn't really helping them and kind of hurting them. So yeah, I can see I'm kind of going with my gut here. This was a new revelation that came about a couple days ago. And like I said, you're hearing it before my publisher has. So
luckily this won't air right away.
Yeah, thank God. Sorry, Jesse. But yeah.
So when you decide what the book will be that's coming out September 1st, how long will you allow yourself to write it? You may need to make that decision fairly soon.
Well, if it's a reissue of the offline dating method, I'm really just going to change out the narrative to be gender neutral, swap out stories to be all genders and sexual orientations. So probably interviewing some experts in the LGBT community, men who work with men who work with men to attract women, and just get a broader spectrum so that every human who picks up that book who wants to attract a great partner feels like it speaks to them in some way. So that would not be any major editing. The offline connection method is still using the same principles as the offline dating method. But again, the more ideas I get for it and the more I see how long it's going to write, that might be what helps push it out to maybe next spring.
Okay. Push it out to next spring doesn't sound very good. We got that September 1st date and the plans around that, but releasing it at the right time with the right support and the right message is probably a lot more important than a given date.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what else are you working on besides the next book or 3 books or 4 books or next business or the next workshop? Do you have another part of that path in there somewhere?
Oh, let's see. In my spare time, I'm not working 7 days a week. No, that's mostly it. I really am. am not just writing the book, but building out back-end resources too, so people have a next step. So I also have in my Business Master Offline Dating coaching programs, and right now they are for single women looking to attract men, and that's only because that's what I can speak to. Because I think it's also not good for someone to claim that they can speak to all audiences when I can't really speak to how to attract a woman in the real world as a woman. There's different codes and approaches for that, which is why, pulling in experts who know that, I think would be very valuable. So right now, I'm probably launching my coaching program in the fall after one of the books comes out, whichever one. These are weird problems to have, right? I don't know which book's coming out. But also just the back-end resources of free materials that people can use to download a PDF or go through an email sequence that takes them through the book, or my 3-day challenge that they can join, which is free. Just, sign up give me your email address. I'll walk you through it. These are all things that take a lot of time to build, that a lot of them are in place, but they're the next step after the book. Because I don't want people to just pick up the book, read it, feel inspired, and then do nothing, because then I can't change your life if you don't apply the material. So I really want to build in that back-end support for people.
Excellent point. I'm glad you're taking that into account and working on that as well.
Welcome to an opportunity to take the next step of your professional speaking journey. I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever wished you were a star in a television show, or at an event where the media is interviewing bystanders and you are wanting to be picked to give your opinion of the event? Or even in the smallest sense, you're at a sports game and secretly hope that your smiling face would appear on that big jumbo screen TV? But the jumbo screen always finds the fans with the painted faces. And you think to yourself, maybe next time. Well, what if I can offer you a chance to be on TV? Would you take it? That is what I want to offer you now. I'm Dottie Love, Associate TV Producer and Director. And District 7 is expanding your opportunities to do speaking via television. We have 4 fully equipped television studios and TV Toastmaster broadcasts to over 500,000 homes, plus a YouTube channel. Who knew? We want to invite you to take advantage of using media and television, either in front or behind the scenes. If this intrigues you, or if you have club members who you think that might be interested in this, please contact us here at TV Toastmasters. I'm Dottie Love, and you can reach me or any of us in the TV Toastmasters family at the contact information at the bottom of the screen. You can also find us on the web. Our website is 7512.toastmastersclub.org.
The 3-day challenge you mentioned, is that something already in place?
It is at offlinedatingchallenge.com. You can sign up for the offline dating challenge, 3 days to a red hot date in the real world. And that is actually, I have it for whether you want to attract a woman in the real world or attract a man in the real world. So.
Okay. But based on authenticity, sounding like you're more heterosexual than anything else, I guess the focus is for a man to attract a woman to attract a man so far.
Well, with the challenge, it doesn't matter. So whether you're a woman who wants to attract a woman, it's basically, do you want to attract a man or a woman? If you want to attract both, sign up for both challenges.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I like the idea that you're recognizing the validity in having someone else who is of a given persuasion to be the expert on how that community operates and how those factors come into play. I'm sure there's commonality across the spectrum, but there's also nuance that's different for different people wanting to achieve different goals.
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, and I even say this in my book, we're all humans. That's why 80+% of it is going to apply no matter your relationship status, gender, anything, but I do want to specifically make all groups feel included by adding in nuances if that can help them, that I don't know, I'm not privy to. I don't know these nuances, so I have to ask other experts who know these.
Camille, it's been very interesting talking to you. I think we need to wrap it up right now. We've been speaking with Camille Virginia about the offline dating method, which really is mostly applicable to offline connection, human to human. And we've explained why it is and the value of that. We talked about her business a little bit, the Master Offline Dating, and how it may grow as well. Her upcoming book or books, the Offline Dating Challenge, the 3-day challenge. Be sure you check that out because it doesn't need to be applying for a date. Establish human connection. I've enjoyed her visit on the show today. I hope you have as well. Thank you for watching The Right Stuff. This is Ken Coomes, signing off.